right, welcome back to the deep dive. We have got a massive one for you today.
A really big one.
Usually, we take a stack of articles, a few different papers, and we try to find the thread. But today is different.
It is.
We are looking at something that frames itself not just as a book, but as an intellectual weapon. We're diving into God Pill, the heavenly red pill, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit by Conrad Riker. And before we even crack this thing open, I need you to do something for me right now. If you want to support what we do here, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel immediately. Seriously, do it now so you don't forget.
And you're going to want to be subscribed for this one.
Yeah.
This isn't your standard self-help guide. Riker isn't offering tips on how to be happier.
Yeah.
He's offering a map for men who feel like the ground has completely shifted under their feet.
Exactly. This is for the guys out there, the MRAs, the men in the manosphere, the guys who call themselves red-pilled, who are looking around and just saying, something is fundamentally broken.
And Riker's thesis is, it's so bold. He's saying, no, it's not broken at all.
It's working perfectly.
It's working exactly as it was designed to work. And that's the core of it. The book calls it the great lie.
The great lie.
Yeah, that modern men are fed this sentimental fiction, that the system is just confused or stumbling towards equality.
Yeah.
Riker argues the system is a highly efficient machine designed to dispossess men of their sovereignty.
And we are going to go deep on that. I mean, the Marxist roots, the biological realities of dating nobody wants to touch, the legal traps, and finally, the solution, the God Pill itself.
It's an ultra-long, really incisive look at our institutions.
But I have to say this right now. What we're covering today is just a taste. This is the trailer. The book is the movie. If any of this resonates with you, you need to go to Amazon Kindle or Google Play Books right now and buy God Pill by Conrad Riker. You need the full text.
You really do. It's incredibly dense. So let's start where he starts, with the lie.
The core deception.
Exactly. Riker argues men are raised on this sentimental fiction, that women are inherently more moral, more nurturing, more communal.
Right, the fairer sex idea. But the book just takes a sledgehammer to that. It says men are operating on logic and honor, but the system's been retooled to exploit that. And this wasn't an accident. Walk us through the history here, that Marxist infection he talks about.
Well, Riker draws a direct line back to the Frankfurt School, in intellectuals like Adorno and Marcuse.
Okay.
The book explains that these guys realized classic economic Marxism. Well, it wasn't working in the West. The workers weren't revolting. So they changed tactics. They targeted the culture.
And specifically, the family. Why the family?
Because independent, strong families are the ultimate resistance to state control. If a man is the head of his house, owns his property, raises his kids with his values, he doesn't need the state. He's sovereign.
Right.
So according to the source, they developed what's called critical theory. And its whole purpose was to dismantle traditional values by criticizing everything: the father, the church, the nation.
And that's what he calls the long march through the institutions, isn't it?
Precisely. It wasn't a military invasion, it was an infiltration. Riker details how these ideas just well. They seeped into the universities, the media, the legal system. The goal was to replace the father with the state.
Creating a dependent population.
A population of dependents who looked to the government for money, for morality, for everything.
The book uses the 1619 Project as a prime example of this, right? Calling it ideological training.
Yes. It reframes American history as fundamentally evil, which disconnects young men from their heritage. If you make a man ashamed of his ancestors, you've broken his spirit. He becomes malleable.
Okay, so that's the historical setup. The institutions have been captured. But then he pivots to something even more visceral. Biology.
And this is where it gets really uncomfortable for some people.
We have to talk about hypergamy.
This is the hard truth section. The book argues that while we're being fed all these lies about social construction, biology is still running the show in the background. Hypogamy is simply the female instinct to marry up.
And he brings the data. He cites this Occupid study that is it's staggering. It showed that women on the platform rated 80% of men as below average in attractiveness.
80%.
Think about the math on that. It's insane.
Yeah.
If you are a totally average guy right in the middle to the female gaze, according to this data, you are subpar.
You're basically invisible. And it's not just Occupid. He brings up Tinder data too, showing women swipe right on a tiny percentage of top profiles. The top 20% of men are getting all the attention,
while the bottom 80% are fighting for scraps.
And Riker connects this to what he calls the dual mating strategy. It's an evolutionary biology concept.
Hmm.
The idea is that women have two conflicting drives.
Okay.
On one hand, they want the alpha genes, the dominant, high-status male for the best kids. But those guys, they rarely stick around. So on the other hand, they need a beta provider.
The guy who will offer security and resources. The good, stable guy.
Exactly. So the strategy becomes have fun with the alphas and then find a beta to pay the bills when you hit the wall.
The wall being the biological reality of declining fertility after 30.
Precisely. Female fertility drops off a cliff. But a man's value, his status, his resources, it often rises as he gets older.
Yeah.
So you have this collision course.
And the irony, which Riker just drills down on, is that this so-called liberation hasn't made women happy. He cites that Stevenson and Wolfer's study, the paradox of declining female happiness.
It's true. They're freer than ever, but measurably less happy than they were 40 years ago.
Why?
Because, as the book argues, feminism sold them a poison labeled as freedom. It told them a career is better than a family.
Yeah.
But the result is often loneliness and the destruction of the very social fabric that is there to protect them.
Which leads us right into the legal trap. Because if you do try to get married, Riker says you're walking into a minefield. The divorce stats in this book are chilling.
They are. The source says around 70% of divorces are initiated by women. And for college-educated women, it's even higher.
And this is enabled by no-fault divorce.
Right. Riker frames no-fault divorce as the government becoming this new patriarch. It lets one person just unilaterally break the marriage contract, and then the state steps in with its force to transfer wealth from the man to the woman.
And it's not just the money, it's the kids. The book talks about the tender years doctrine.
Yeah, this is a legal framework from the 19th century that basically presumed mothers are better caregivers by default.
Right.
And even though the laws have changed, Riker argues that bias is still baked deep into the court system.
So fathers are fighting an uphill battle from day one.
A massive uphill battle. And then there's the Duluth model.
This one blew my mind. Explain what this is.
The Duluth model is a policy used in domestic violence intervention. The book argues it's built on the ideological premise that all domestic violence is patriarchal terrorism.
Meaning, it assumes the man is the batterer.
It assumes the man is the batterer and the woman is the victim, period. It actively erases male victims and encourages police to see any female violence as just self-defense.
It presumes male guilt.
It presumes male guilt from the outset, which creates this system where a man can literally be arrested in his own home for being assaulted.
And that presumption of guilt, it bleeds into everything. The book has a whole section on false accusations and the believe all women dogma. He uses the Duke Lacrosse case as the prime example.
That case is absolutely critical to his argument. You had innocent young men, a prosecutor who hid DNA evidence, and the media just burning these guys at the stake because it fit the narrative.
The narrative was more important than the facts.
The narrative was everything. Same thing, he argues, with the Brett Kavanaugh hearings. It wasn't about evidence. It was about destroying a man for a political goal.
So the consequence is what? The end of due process.
The destruction of due process. We've moved from innocent until proven guilty to guilty if accused by a member of a protected class. It is, in his words, gynocentric rule, where feelings override facts.
Wow, it's heavy stuff. But it's not just the courts. It's in the culture, in the schools. He calls it the cultural war.
Right, the war on the cathedral. That's a term for the consensus manufacturing machine of the universities and the media. Riker points out the ratio of liberal to conservative professors is something like 10 to 1.
He brings up James Damore, the Google engineer who got fired just for citing biological differences.
Exactly. Damore tried to use science, and he was fired for it. The book uses this to show how the system actively punishes any truth that contradicts the prevailing ideology.
Riker calls it the war on excellence. And I think this resonates with a lot of guys. The idea that equity is just a tool to punish success.
And that's where toxic masculinity comes in. The book reframes this completely. It argues the system labels natural masculine traits, aggression, stoicism, leadership as toxic, because those are the very traits that make men hard to control.
If you can make a man ashamed of his own nature,
You can gild him. You can make him a passive, compliant consumer. It's the safe space culture. A man is forged in adversity. If you remove adversity, you prevent the creation of strong men.
Okay, so we've laid out the problem. The system is rigged, the culture hates you, it sounds incredibly bleak. But the book is called God Pill, so there must be a solution.
And this is the pivot. The book moves from diagnosis to prescription. Riker basically says, stop complaining. The system is not going to change for you. You have to build your own system.
And he starts with the mind, the trivium.
The trivium, grammar, logic, and rhetoric. the classical tools of learning. Riker says men need to master these to dismantle the lies. When someone says smash the patriarchy, a man trained in the trivium asks, define patriarchy. Where is it? Show me the logic.
It's about building a mental fortress. He pairs that with Stoicism, right? Marcus Aurelius.
Yes. You have power over your mind, not outside events. That's the core. You can't control the courts or the media, but you can control your reaction. You can control your own virtue.
But it gets practical, too. It's not just philosophy. He talks about building actual fortresses.
Right. A physical fortress. Lift weights. Get strong. A financial fortress. Build assets that are hard to seize, like LLCs and trusts. Protect yourself from the divorce machine.
And the social fortress, this is huge. Brotherhoods.
Men need other men. Riker talks about a Spartan verification protocol. Basically, verify loyalty. Build male-only spaces where you can speak freely.
He also has this great tool called the 10-minute BS detector.
Chuckles. Yeah, it's a simple heuristic. Listen to what is said versus what is done. If a woman says she wants a nice guy, but only dates bad boys, trust the action, not the word.
Strip away the fiction and look at the raw data.
Exactly. And ultimately, Riker says the greatest rebellion of all is just excellence.
That's the God pill.
That's it. The ultimate rebellion against a system that wants you weak, dependent, and mediocre is to be successful, fit, independent, and virtuous. If they hate strength, be strong. If they hate logic, be logical.
The ultimate rebellion is excellence. I love that. So what does this all mean for you, the listener? Riker leaves us with this idea of the holy war for meaning.
It's the choice. You can stay in the padded cage. It's comfortable. You've got Netflix, porn, cheap food. You can believe the lies and just drift. Or you can accept the burden of truth. It's heavier, it's harder, but it's real.
It's the only path to becoming a sovereign man. And look, we have unpacked a lot, but we've barely scratched the surface of what's in God Pill.
No, you really need to read the primary text.
Yeah.
The detail on legal strategies, the deeper history. We just can't cover it all.
So here is your marching order. Go to Amazon Kindle or Google Play Books immediately. Search for God Pill by Conrad Riker. Buy it. Read it. Treat it like the manual it is.
And don't forget to follow him for the ongoing conversation. He's at Conrad Riker on Substack.
Exactly. Get the book, get on the Substack, and if you know a friend, a brother, a cousin, a guy at work who's still asleep, share this deep dive with him. Help him wake up.
Starts one mind at a time.
That's right. Like, subscribe, and we will see you on the next deep dive. Stay sovereign.